I've thought about this more than I should. What would I actually do? Not theoretically, not inspirationally, but actually do. If tomorrow I woke up with nothing. No savings, no clients, no reputation that anyone could verify, no network that would take my call. Just me, a phone with the data still on it, and 60 days before reality became genuinely dangerous. I've run this scenario in my head so many times that it stopped being a thought experiment. It became a blueprint. And what I found, what actually surprised me when I got honest about it, wasn't a strategy. It was a confrontation. With every excuse I'd ever used, every delay I'd ever justified, every version of, I'll do it when the timing is right, I'd ever believed. Because here's the thing about imagining you've lost everything. The excuses disappear with the assets. And what's left is either something real or the proof that there was never anything there to begin with. Let me set the scene exactly. It's day one. I have a laptop, a phone, a Wi-Fi connection at a library or a coffee shop, and whatever knowledge currently lives between my ears. That's the inventory. That's everything I'm allowed to work with. No paid tools, no ad budget, no assistant, no brand that anyone recognizes, no safety net of recurring revenue I can coast on while I figure it out. Just the clock. And the specific, clarifying terror of knowing that sentiment doesn't pay rent. The first thing I'd do, and this is the part that would feel unproductive, but is actually the most important hour of the entire process, is sit down and write a brutal, honest audit of what I actually know how to do. Not what I'm interested in. Not what I wish I was known for. What can I do, right now, today, that would make someone's life or business measurably better? That question sounds simple. It is not simple, because most of us have spent years confusing activity with capability, confusing being busy with being skilled. And when you strip away the job title and the employer's brand and the team that made the output possible, what remains that is genuinely, transferably yours? I'd spend that first hour finding out. Here's what my honest audit would look like. I know how to identify why an audience isn't growing and what to change. I know how to take a complicated idea and make it feel inevitable in the telling. I know how to structure an offer so that the no becomes harder than the yes. I know how to diagnose a content strategy in 20 minutes of looking at someone's numbers. That's not a resume. That's a menu. And here's the distinction that changes everything. A resume is a document you hand to a gatekeeper and hope they approve. A menu is something you put in front of someone who is hungry. The entire game of rebuilding from zero is moving from resume thinking to menu thinking, as fast as possible. Because resume thinking waits. It applies. It follows up politely and respects the process. Menu thinking finds hungry people and feeds them. So the moment I finish that audit, the moment I have a clear, honest menu of what I can actually do, I stop thinking about myself entirely. And I start thinking about who is in pain right now, today, in a way that my menu directly addresses. But then something strange happens when you actually do this exercise. You realize the menu is longer than you thought, and the market for what's on it is bigger and more desperate than you've ever let yourself believe. Day 2. This is where most people freeze. Not because they don't know what to do, because doing it means risking something that feels more precious than money right now. It means risking the story that they're about to do something, which still feels like possibility, versus actually doing something and finding out if it works. I know this freeze. I've lived it. The way the brain manufactures preparation as a substitute for action. One more thing to research, one more thing to refine, one more reason why the timing isn't quite right yet. With nothing left to lose, I don't have the luxury of that lie, so I'd make a list, not of opportunities, of people. Specifically, 10 people I know, or know of, who run businesses, create content, or manage teams, and who have a problem I can see from the outside that they probably can't see clearly from the inside. I wouldn't send them a pitch. I wouldn't send them a deck. I wouldn't ask for a call to explore synergies in the language of someone who isn't actually desperate, but is pretending they're not. I'd send them one paragraph, something like, I've been watching what you're building, and I think I can see exactly why specific thing isn't working the way you want it to. I could be wrong, but if I'm right, I can fix it, and you don't pay me anything until you agree that I have. Can I show you what I'm seeing? That message does something most outreach doesn't do. It proves I've actually paid attention. It demonstrates specific value before asking for anything. And it puts all the risk on me. which, when you have nothing, is the only place the risk can go anyway. And this is the part almost nobody talks about in the rebuild from zero conversation. The willingness to carry all the risk is your first and most powerful competitive advantage. Let's say 2 people respond, maybe 3. I'm not celebrating yet, because responding isn't the same as paying. And the gap between interest and money is where most attempts at rebuilding go to die. So I'd deliver before I invoice, immediately, disproportionately. I'd show them something real, a diagnosis, a rewrite, a fixed funnel, a content audit with 3 specific changes that would move numbers, something they can hold in their hands and evaluate before they've committed anything. This feels counterintuitive when you're broke. It feels like giving away the thing you're trying to sell. But what you're actually doing is something far more valuable than a sale. You're building proof. And proof, in the early stages of rebuilding, is worth more than any amount of marketing. Because every person who sees what you can do before they've paid for it and decides to pay for it anyway, they don't become a client. They become a reference. And the single fastest path from 0 to 6 figures isn't a great product. It's a small number of people who tell other people, without being asked, that you're the person to call. 3 clients who each talk to 3 people. That's a business. That's $100,000 in view. That's the beginning of something that doesn't depend on algorithms or ad spend or going viral. That's the oldest economy in human history. Reputation, moving through trust networks, at the speed of a solved problem. Here is the thing I would refuse to do. Even under pressure. Especially under pressure, I would not build a product, not yet. Not on day 1 or day 30 or even day 60. Because products require audiences, and audiences require time. And time is the one thing that 0 in your bank account doesn't give you. I've watched people do this. I've almost done it myself. The pivot to building something scalable, before you've validated that anyone wants what you're selling in the first place. The course that nobody buys. The template that sits on Gumroad with 17 impressions. The newsletter that grows at 40 subscribers a month while the rent notice sits on the kitchen counter. Building a product before you have revenue is not entrepreneurship. It is a psychologically comfortable way to avoid the terrifying, intimate, high-stakes act of selling yourself directly to another human being. It feels like building. It looks like progress. But it is, in the specific way that matters most, a form of hiding, and I cannot afford to hide. So I stay in the uncomfortable place. The place of direct offers, direct conversations, direct delivery, direct feedback. The place where you find out immediately whether what you're offering has real value, not in 6 months when the product launch analytics come in, but in 48 hours when someone either sends you money or tells you why they won't. That feedback loop is brutal. It is also the most valuable education available on earth, and it costs nothing but the willingness to be wrong in front of someone. Here's where I have to be honest about something. I've run this scenario in my head for years, and every time I do, I reach the same uncomfortable place. I realize that most of what I've called constraints in my real life, the reasons I haven't moved faster, built bigger, risked more, aren't actually constraints. They're comfort dressed up as caution. When I imagine losing everything, the excuses I currently believe in simply cease to exist. The timing isn't wrong anymore, because there's no good timing left to wait for. The fear of looking foolish evaporates, because there's nothing left to protect my image with. The paralysis of too many options collapses into the single sharp question of what actually works right now. And in that imaginary stripped-down state, I move faster, think clearer, and take the actions I've been postponing in my real life for months. Which raises a question I find genuinely difficult to sit with. What am I waiting for? Not you. Me. What is the comfortable life I'm currently living costing me in motion, in urgency, in the specific quality of focus that only arrives when the stakes are real? This thought experiment isn't about what I'd do if I lost everything. It's a mirror. It shows me, with uncomfortable precision, exactly which parts of my current life are real, and which parts are just elaborate reasons to stay still. If I lost everything tomorrow, I would be scared. I won't pretend otherwise. The fear would be real. The weight of it would be physical. But underneath the fear, and I know this, because I've felt it before, in smaller collapses, in the moments where the floor dropped and I had to find out what I was made of, underneath it, there would be something else. A kind of brutal, clarifying freedom. The freedom of no longer having to protect what you have, of no longer performing stability, of being exactly as uncertain as you actually are, without the exhausting maintenance of the opposite impression. And from that place, that raw, undecorated, nothing left to lose place, I would build. Not because I had to, because I'd finally run out of reasons not to. The $100,000 is not the point of this video. It never was. The point is the question hiding inside it. Not what would you do if you lost everything, but what would you finally start if you stopped pretending that everything you're protecting is worth more than the life you're not living yet.